Hey guys, this is Alan from photoshopisfun.com. Now today before we start, I just want to let you know that I have heard your feedback. I know the audio quality of a lot of the previous videos hasn't been fantastic, so I went out and purchased myself a Blue Nessie microphone, which I really like so far, and hopefully you will also benefit from the enhanced audio. So feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. Now, all that said, today I want to do just a quick video. I'm actually just exercising the mic, but I want to do a quick video on compositing, and it's going to be a really basic compositing. I get a lot of questions about compositing, so I'm just going to cover a really basic beginner's tutorial, and then over the next month or so, I'm going to release a series that goes through the advanced techniques of compositing, where we do some really cool stuff that a lot of you will like, especially a lot of you more advanced Photoshoppers. So with that said, let's jump straight into this. Okay, so what is a composite? A composite is, two or more images or artifacts that are blended together so that they have the appearance of a single photo. And that's essentially what you're looking at right now. This is not a single photo, it's actually two. So if I were to turn off this final layer, you'll see the original image, and this is a picture that I took downtown. It has a very unimpressive background. It's very distracting from the actual photo. And so what I've done is I've taken this kid, I've separated him from the background, and I've dropped him into another picture where it's a scene in the forest in the fall, etc. And then I just added some color treatments and a vignette that got me to this final outcome. And again, this is very basic stuff in terms of compositing, but it will give you the essentials on how to do it. And you can see overall it looks pretty good for something that I did in less than 10 minutes. So once you kind of get these techniques down, it's not that difficult to do, kind of the basic stuff. Now, when you get into the more advanced stuff, then it really does require a higher skill set. But we're going to get into that, like I said before, in a couple of weeks here as I finish up on those tutorials. So with all that, let's get straight into this one. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of every single layer here and get us back down to the original image. And the first thing I want to do is I want to separate him from this background. So I'm going to go ahead and select the quick selection tool. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but this works pretty well in most cases. So I'm going to go ahead and left click, and I'm just going to hold down the left mouse button basically, and I'm going to drag it over my subject. And it's going to go ahead and look for contrasting edges, and it's going to make the selection for me. And it does a pretty good job overall. What it probably won't get are these spots right here in this area beneath the hand, but I'll deal with those in a minute. So I'm just going to get this. And it looks like it's got most of his hat, but not all of it. So again, I'm just going to continue to left click over the areas that I want the marquee to pick up. And there we go. And overall, it looks pretty good. Let's see over there. I'll go ahead. And if I want to deselect an area, then what I will do, so like here, so like right there, you can see that the marquee went outside of his hat and coat. So I want to get rid of this. I don't want this part selected. So what you do is you hold down the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac, and then you just drag over that area, and you're basically just telling Photoshop, hey, don't go ahead and grab that. And I'm going to do that here as well. And it should go ahead and pick it up, which is good. And then I need to grab a little bit more of this, so I'm not holding Alt or Option now. And that's pretty decent. I'm going to go ahead and hold down Alt or Option on the Mac to get this area in here. And that looks pretty good. And I'm going to do the same thing right in here. Now what I want to do is select, oops, not that. I want to select Refine Edge. And that will go ahead and pull him or separate him from that background layer. And I'm just going to do a quick review of this, make sure it looks pretty good. It does overall. And if you're not familiar with the advanced techniques of the Refine Edge tool, this part that we're at right now, I have a video on it, so go ahead and go watch that. It's actually my most popular video, and you'll understand how to use this UI and this tool for doing more complicated selections. So overall, this looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn on Smart Radius and crank this probably up to around 2, just to make sure that those edges look good. And overall, I'm pretty happy with this. So this is good. I'm going to do a 2 on my edge here. And I'm going to also do a 5 on my contrast so that I have a nice contrast on the edges. Okay, so now I want to make sure that I output to a new layer with layer mask, and then click OK. And what that'll do is that'll put him on a separate layer with a layer mask, just as just as the UI implied. So if I were to do that, you see the original, and then turn that off, and here we have this kid. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to take my background and I want to drop it into the layer underneath the one that he is on. So it needs to go in between layer 0 here and layer 0 copy. Now I have this on another monitor that you can't see, but I'm basically going to drag the photo into Photoshop. And I am going to do a Control-A, Control-C to copy it, and back to my image, and I'm going to go to the layer underneath the kid and do Control-V to paste it. And what you will see is that the image itself is a little bit small for my canvas. It's a little bit smaller than the image with the kid. So I can either shrink him down and fit everything to that image, but since we're just kind of goofing around here, I'm going to go ahead and just stretch this by doing Control-T, which is transform, and I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so that it fills the background. It also doesn't need to be overly detailed because it is a background image. You won't really notice it in the final product. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, double click to deselect it. And now you can see one of the fundamental problems with compositing, and that is light. Light is what is the trigger to, for your viewer to notice that something is odd about the photo, that it doesn't look totally realistic. And the more the difference is in the lighting of the two photos, and the way your subject is lit versus the things behind him, the more obvious it'll be. So one of the things you have to do sometimes is fool the viewer. And typically what we'll do is we'll do that through color treatments. We'll do that through dodge and burn. We might do it through just flipping everything to black and white and then making some minor contrast and level adjustments. That helps a lot. That's a very common technique, is to flip things to black and white. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run one of the filters that I developed. I'm actually working on a pack for you guys that I'll release here pretty soon. And what it's going to do is it's going to throw on kind of an Instagram effect. I call it dark night, and it'll help blend these things or these two images together and pull off the illusion. So I'm going to go ahead and select the top layer here, and then I'm going to go to my actions, and I'm going to select dark night, and I'm just going to play it. And you can see that once it's done, you'll get that final output that we were talking about earlier, or at least that you saw when I first started the tutorial. So there you go. It looks pretty good. If you had never seen this photo and I just showed it to you for the first time, you'd say, hey, that looks pretty natural. You wouldn't probably think anything of it. But as you've seen, it is actually two different photos with two different lighting sources that look quite different, but we pulled off the effect. Now, one of the things I would do here to fix this a little bit is his coloring is slightly off from the background. So I would go ahead and hold down Control and then select the layer mask so that I had him selected. And then what I would do is I would probably throw on a color balance, and he, in my opinion, is a little on the magenta side. So I'd throw a little bit of green into that, and then I'll drop some of the blue over here. And I don't know how this looks through a YouTube stream, but on this side it looks pretty decent. The colors match pretty well. So there you have. Oh snap, I forgot to show you something. So if you have a really critical eye like I do, when you look at photographs, you might notice that there is still something, at least on the periphery, that kind of raises some suspicion. And that is because in order to sell this photo, you really have to make sure that every single detail is taken care of. So in this case, what's wrong with this, or at least what raises suspicion for me, is the background is so clear. So one of the things I do here is take care of that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the merged layer here, and I'm going to go back to the background, And what I'm going to do is go up to Filter and go down to Blur Gallery. And if you don't have Blur Gallery, that means you probably don't have Photoshop Creative Cloud 2014, because it's a new feature there. You could probably try and use the Gaussian blur under the blur menu, and probably like a 3 to 5, I would imagine, Gaussian blur would probably work. It won't work quite as well as the field blur, but it'll work. But instead, I'm going to go ahead and use the field blur. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with 15 pixels. And you can see right away that it starts to blur out the background. It keeps him nice and clear. It makes the photo look like a professional DSLR camera took it, which it did actually, but it really helps sell the entire photograph. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And once this is finished rendering, what I would do is then go back up here and I would recompile. So Shift, Control, Alt, E, the longest sequence for a shortcut. And here you have a layer that has all of the lower layers merged into a single layer. And then I would go up to Filter and Camera Raw Filter to put the vignette back on, and click FX here, and then slide this down for this particular photo. I think about 30 is what I did, and then click OK. And there you have it. Now I have sold the photograph to the viewer, and I think so very well. So with that, take some of your own photos. You can go ahead and grab the photograph that I used here if you'd like. It's in the description, and practice yourself. And until the next time, happy photoshopping, and make sure to subscribe.